And I'm going to go ahead and start by introducing our presenter today, Nick Rule. He is the athletics director at William Penn University. He is also a champion of character himself. And he is, let's see, I'm seeing Will Wolpers. Well, don't know what happened there, but hey, that was fun. He is also a Champions of Character himself. He was an NAI student athlete. He lives and breathes the Champions of Character program, and excited to learn and listen from him and all the things that you all need to know as an administrator. So Nick, I'm going to share my screen and turn it over to you. Woo!
Thank you, Paige. When you say I was a student athlete, I'm dating that back, and that was 18 years ago, and it made me realize that I've been at William Penn half my life now. So I'm not sure if it's a mixed emotions, but super excited. Yeah, I played soccer at William Penn, played golf as well. Started coaching the women's golf team in 2010, and for the last 7 years, I coached for 8 years the women's golf team. In the last 7 years, I've been in this role. Now, well, I'm really excited to be in front of this group today. I think over the last 7 years that I've noticed, just when I started and kind of getting into where we're at today in the space of college athletics, really noticed an evolution in, who has a seat at the table. And I think that's one of the greatest things happening in intercollegiate athletics right now. There are many things that are going on in college athletics right now that just really feel like a revolution. And, revolution is destructive and it's messy. This group is an example of what I see as evolution, which really is productive and cutting edge. And so I'm here for it. And I'm just really excited. I've been looking forward to this since I was asked last month to be a part of it. So, Champions of Character is super important. Okay. I mean, you can say that, but I'm going to get real today about it. I'm going to get real about what this program is and where it's at right now and what it can be and what we want to do. And to kind of frame it a little bit, I hope that as we talk about this and reintroduce it, so in some ways, this could be an introduction to you for Champions of Character. And in some ways, it could be a reintroduction for you. And so I want to talk about what this program's all about, where it's at, where we want it to be, how we want it to get there. But also, I hope that you take this insight today in a way that you can use the tools that are in place at the national office within this program to serve your student athletes in a way that provides a framework for student athlete development. Some of you may be aware of the group N4A that's under the NACDA umbrella. It's very Division I focused, very heavy, but they have so many people that are involved in providing student athlete development. This is really about character programs. A few years ago, we had someone working for us. She's now our director of admissions, but she was the NAIA ASA president. Her name is Madison Lance. We were getting her very involved in N4A as a graduate assistant. And so when she was a student, we actually flew out to Rutgers University to talk about their student athlete development program. We spent the next 6 months with our board of trustees developing a student athlete development program for that, which is very much focused around character and all that. And then as I look back and the program was done, I realized that we just developed a program that probably was already in existence within the Champions of Character. And we spent a lot of time on that. And so I hope we can extract some of the information today that can help you create character development programs on your campus. I also hope one of the things that we can get from today is that there's some of what has happened with Champions of Character is very transactional in a sense. I think we need to extract some of these transactional habits, and we're not really going to talk about very many of those till the end. And there's this transactional operational components. And those of you that are character liaisons know exactly what I'm talking about. And those are necessary. And we can get into why those are going to be necessary. But I really want to hone in on the transformational attributes of the program, which I think have been lost a little bit as we've gone through things. So
yes, I totally forgot.
We can go to the next slide. So why is this program important? It's really been a key pillar within the NAI since, really, and we're going to get into the timeline, since the early 2000s. And the reason why it's so important is because, we have the ability on our campuses. We have a unique ability when you compare to our larger schools, and are sometimes competitors, sometimes aren't. But we have this small student to instructor ratio on our campuses. Sometimes the administrator to student ratio isn't smaller, which we all know. But we have the ability to have a deeper connection through purpose driven and development with our student athletes. I've got to know a few Division I ADs within the last few years, and I realized that they don't ever even really touch base with the students. They don't understand the day-to-day. They have several layers between them and the student. I think that's the great thing about small colleges and where we're at within the NAIA is that, you know, we get to know these students. We get to know a little bit about them, not as much as with if you're a coach or we're a coach, but there's greater opportunities for this complete culture development within a department. At the larger school space, you see football has their culture, baseball has their culture, women's basketball, men's basketball. They're like these 20 plus different departments. The thing that we can do on our campus, which Champions of Character can help with, is that, you know, we might at William Penn, we have 25 different sports that might need to operate in individuality, but we want them to operate on under one big umbrella with 25 separate umbrellas under there. They can be their own little sport, but they need to fit into our culture. Champions of Character can help with that. Many may argue that administrators can have a much bigger influence at a small school, and I think it can, and this program can help you. We can go to the next slide. So John Wooden has a great quote. Love this here. Be more concerned with your character than your reputation, because your character is what you really are, while your reputation is merely what others think you are. Champions of Character really falls into the place where, you know, we can do these things by focusing on character on our campuses. And as I go through things here, think of this program as a resource to move the needle in helping your students win at life. A few years ago, it was probably my second year as an AD, I went to NACDA, and we're in this big, massive room with all the administrators from all different levels. And I heard this athletic director talking about shopping. And I'm just like, what is he talking about? He said, we all shop from one another. And the reality is what we're dealing with is that, you know, we are all looking to each other all the time, looking on what one another are doing so we can maybe steal an idea and implement it on our own campus. We spend so much time. I know I do. I'm guilty of it. You know, I might have taken ideas from your campus and made it one of ours. Okay. But in the end, what he had talked about is that in the world of athletic administration, we call that shopping. We're just shopping from one another. We don't need to necessarily shop from one another because we have a program here today. So let's talk about just the timeline of Champions in Character. You know, it was really defined in 2000, and you can see 2000 to 2004, and some quick hits on that. There was some high school outreach, and there were some presentations to NAI members, and it was introduced on the NAI website. You saw it really kind of start to gain some momentum in 2005 to 2009. This is where we were. Remember, we're going to talk about where we were, where we're at now, and where we want to be in the future. You know, in that range from 2005 to 2009, the scorecard was launched. We had liaisons, which are character liaisons now. From 2010 to 2014, you know, there was some educational resources. Ejection forms and tracking really started. We began to see legislation on behavior, and then there's game management manuals and things like that. And then from 2015 to 19. Not as much as far as the progress. And I think you're going to see on the timeline here is that from 2000 to 2014, there was a lot of things being done. And then from really 2015 to 2019, it became very operational. And you can see that with just in the timeline. It's about evolution, not revolution, but there wasn't a whole ton of evolution with it. We were just kind of staying status quo with it. And from 2020 and now, you can see that there's some things going on, which we're going to get into. And that's what I'm referring to as somewhat of a relaunch. So what are these 5 core values? If you're new to the association, these might be new to you. If you have been around for a while, you might have seen these, but it's integrity, responsibility, respect, sportsmanship, and servant leadership. You know, this program helps participants really find the balance between all these different things. And, you know, for more than 2 decades, that program has really been put in place to make a difference. And we'll get into the nuts and bolts of each here in a second. So we can go on to the next one, is integrity. So integrity, you'll see with the 5 values, there's really 5 principles that really line up under them. And one of the things that I want you to remember as we go through this is that I think we're so interesting in the NAIA, especially you go to convention and there's legislation and all these different things. There's this like constant battle between autonomy and you know, governance. And I think as we go through these 5 values, one of the things that you'll see is that there's an introduction of concepts here that make a lot of sense, and can guide you from a governance standpoint with our national association, with giving us some guidance, but you can implement them and have the autonomy to figure out how to implement them in your own way. But again, just like what so many of us need, we need just kind of a push. We need something slightly developed. All right. And so, using your ASAs and captains of teams and things like that to help with some of this. But on the integrity side of things, it's really knowing what's right and doing what's right. And that's committed, courageous, honest, disciplined, and resilient. I think the great thing on how this is set up, as we talked about, is you can go through and figure out what things can you do and show on your campus that can fit under these, 5 different principles under each value. And so, we all know integrity, and that's a choice. And it's a small daily decisions. But again, you don't need to necessarily go in and implement a full entire program by just preaching about the 5 values. But I think we talk a lot about values, but we don't actually find ways to implement them in our daily lives of our student athletes. So how can we show commitment? How can we show honesty and discipline? And I'll give you some examples of what we do at William Penn. For example, our ASA, we're pretty proud of our ASA. We think it's a really good one. It's pretty dynamic. They help us a lot. I see CJ Reddick is on here today. He's our former ASA president, and he's actually a graduate assistant for us now, and he's our advisor for ASA. But that commitment, like with our leadership, when they make a commitment to our ASA, there are certain things that they have to follow up on, and we talk about that. The discipline, honest, all those different things, and we'll get into a few more in a second. But integrity is a pretty big important in our first value, and then the second one is respect. That respect component can really lead to an opening to many of the societal challenges that we feel today. And this is one that we're using a lot on our campus. In particular, if you see the 5 principles under it, accepting, considerate, attentive, encouraging, and appreciative. Man, do we not need more of all that in our world today? Holy cow. And I think, to me, and just where we're at today, if you are an administrative position, you might do something for your higher learning commission or your accreditation organization where you're doing assessments. What we're really going to do here at William Penn is that we might take one of these values every year and just really focus on it. And I think this year we want to do respect. Just like so many of our campuses in the NAIA, well, we're a melting pot of the world. And we're very fortunate. We feel like that the stuff that we see on the news and things like that doesn't happen on our campuses. I make a comment all the time. I wish Washington, D.C. could come to Oskaloosa, Iowa, to William Penn University and see how to get along. Because we have people who don't look like each other, think like each other, and act like each other, who just figure it out and talk and have tough conversations. So I think part of this is that what can you focus on that really is going to help your campus move the needle? So, I think we're going to talk a lot about acceptance and being considerate of others. It could be super simple things on campus, and we're meeting with every single one of our teams right now. And we used to do kind of one big meeting, and we're going team by team. Alicia Rabideau, our associate AD, and I, and CJ. And one of the things we're going to talk about is just open the door for someone. Like when you're going in, just open the door. If you could do one really nice thing every day that's considerate of someone else, like think of how that can change a culture of campus. If you have 500 of your students do that every single day, what's your culture going to look like? And so this is not some big deal that's like you have to implement this massive program, but it's just doing little things. So things like being encouraging and being appreciative as well, things like that. So a year ago, and kind of thinking about this, and this really hit me with the respect side of things. So many of us bring in leadership speakers and leadership experts. We may pay $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. So a year ago, we paid one of these leadership experts, who was fantastic, don't get me wrong, to come to our campus and talk to our students, talk to our staff. We were really, really all about connection coming out of COVID. And, it occurred to me, after talking with our staff and everything like that, everything that they learned through that day was literally the Champions of Character program. And so we had it right here again. What I'm hoping you see is that something is right here for you that you can implement on your own campus. And we could have saved a lot of money and really been tied into consistent messaging. So that's the respect component. Responsibility, embracing those opportunities to contribute. Responsibility is that value that our ASA has taken to heart here at William Penn over the last few years with their leadership on campus. just being helpful and accountable and persevering and reliable and helping us with some tough conversations, helping us navigate the understanding that maybe when classes are closed because there was 20 inches of snow, that we shouldn't require a 6 a.m. practice. That's kind of crazy. But if we don't know, we don't know, right? And so your ASA can have that level of responsibility. And so you've heard me mention ASA a few times. I mean, your ASA can literally be a big part of implementing the Champion Character program. But responsibility is another one of those key values that if you make people aware of it, it can be really vertically integrated into your values. And then sportsmanship. We could spend all day on this one, right? As a former men's soccer player, we could spend all day on men's soccer. Okay. But I talk about prior, respect and responsibility. But I mean, there's things that you can focus on your campus, but I mean, sportsmanship and what we're seeing with the treatment and officials and things like that is probably one of the ones that rises to the top. It's needed now more than ever before. I think one of the things though that part of reason why the 5 principles that you can build off of here with be cooperative, fair, gracious, honorable, and humble is that now more than ever before it's needed. But leadership is sometimes a buzzword to where it's said so much that it kind of loses its meaning. And so we're like, what is leadership, right? And then there's a ton of different definitions for it, a ton of different philosophies on it. I don't think sportsmanship has necessarily many of those different philosophies and such. It seems pretty clear cut, but I think we talk about it so much that in some avenues, it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. And I think it's something that we need to focus on with examples. But I think the other part, and this is something that we're talking about in the Champions of Character Committee, is that, gosh, we are so dang focused on the negative side of sportsmanship. I'm really excited to see the 2 pictures in this slide of people shaking hands, because I've been involved in discussions where we're having conversations about if people should even shake hands at the end of a game. And that's really sad. And we shouldn't be there. And so I guess what I'm going to challenge, Chesney, who's someone I talk with a lot at the NAIA, have a ton of respect for. She shared something on Instagram the other day. I'm big into social media. I love Twitter and Instagram. Okay. So it's like, I love it. All right. And it shared something about, we used to be able to talk about, religion and politics, but we've been told that like, we can't talk about that stuff anymore. So what's happened is that we literally never sit down at the table and share an alternative point of view. And now we don't know how to accept when an alternative point of view when it comes up, because we don't talk about it. And because we're kind of told not to. And I'm not necessarily talking at saying, religion and politics is the same as sportsmanship. What I'm saying is like, we need to talk about sportsmanship, but not just talk about the bad. We need to glorify the good. Like we need to glorify the good things going on. One of the best things I saw last year came from a school of my good friend, Drew Watson, Southeastern University. I don't know if any of you saw it. It was a softball player. The opposing team hit a grand slam home run, took the lead. I think the girl tore ACL, just running around the bases. And the Southeastern players picked the girl up and had her touch every single base. Just, at the detriment of their own team. Well, that's the type of stuff. So I think we've got to figure out on the sportsmanship side. And I don't know that this is necessarily as big of a value that our students, we need to talk to them about it, but I think it's something that we need to start thinking about as administrators. Like, how do we explain this? How do we get into the hearts and the minds of our student athletes and our coaches? Listen, our coaches are not innocent. We all know that. Okay. All right. But the reality is, how do we get that? How do we get into their hearts and minds? And I think we've got to start showing good examples, and we've got to stop the conversation about not doing the right thing because we're scared of what's going to happen. On servant leadership, serving the common good, right? Empowering, visionary, interconnected, generous, and energetic. This, I think our member institutions do such a great job of this. And we may not talk about what we're doing, but how many of you just give a ton of time back to your communities? I think one of the great reminders for all of us is that, especially if you're in a small town, William Penn's in the town of Oskaloosa, about 12 to 15,000 people. We are a big piece of the heart of this town. And I think sometimes the threat to our campuses is we might get siloed into our own little campus. Like we're kind of up on a hill on almost the outside of town, and like we need people to come and see us, and we need to go see them. And I think the servant leadership aspect, all those values are certainly true and make a lot of sense. I think this is a great piece of the Champions of Character program that's at its core. But if you think about it, I mean, we're in Southern Iowa. Some of you are in places that aren't very diverse, okay? Our student body comes from 50 different states and 30 different countries, every different religious and ethnic background you can think of. We got to get our kids out in the community because we've got to get through some of these stereotypes and it might be the situation that kid with this Benedictine, you see these kids going through it. If that's a student athlete that might come from a diverse background, that might be one of the first instances they have in meeting someone who doesn't look like them. Like, I think we have a duty, and I think small colleges, we see these big schools, right? And they, sure, they can move mountains, whatnot. They might have 20, 30,000 people. And they may get all the notoriety for doing something big, but it's the little things that we can do every single day in Atchison, Kansas, in Lakeland, Florida, in Boise, Idaho, in Oskaloosa that can change, our society. And I think the servant leadership part is a super big part of that. And again, so as we've gone through the 5 values, there are really 25 calls to action. Be empowering, be visionary. Like there's 25 calls to action in there. So you have 5 values and 25 calls to action. You have a blueprint here today to be able to take to your campus and start to implement a program. It's there for you. All right. And Sarah's going to show some resources in a little bit, but you literally have it right there. So we've got to be flexible enough for us to understand what's here. And we got to give the examples of what's going on our campus. So it's fitting for this association that we have this here for us today that is not 100% defined because we like autonomy. All right. But it's defined enough to where we can start going and doing some work, some impactful work. And if we all, as I shared at William Penn, we have 25 different sports that we want to operate under one umbrella from a character, a value, a culture standpoint, right? If we could get all of our member institutions to operate under this Champions of Character umbrella and still have their own individuality on their campuses, I mean, I don't know how many off the top of my head student athletes we have, but think about how many people, if it's just 3 people that we make an impact on, how that could really change the world. So let's go and talk about where we're at now with the Champions of Character program. And if you have any questions, save them for the end. We're going to have time for questions. Those of you that are Champions of Character liaison, you're going to see a lot of these maybe transactional approaches, but we'll go to the liaison first. I imagine we have a number of different liaisons here today. For those of you that don't know, the Champions of Character liaison really, and you can go to the next slide page. The Champions of Character liaison is that person on campus, that is around that professional development. And I think sometimes we did this here too, okay? Especially when I was a coach. Our sports information director, Wade Steinlage, is fantastic. He's a great guy. You're one of the best in the business. He was our liaison, and it was just, it's become somewhat of a transactional position in the sense that you got to fill out the scorecard. It's in SID Hub and all those different things. And, you go through and you fill that out, or it starts the NAI help. You go and fill it out and you report all these ejections and things like that. And then it spits out, your gold, silver, or bronze. Okay. Well, that's great. Okay. I understand, we got to do that. We're talking a little bit more about what that means going forward. But this liaison position is more than someone who's reporting. This liaison position has to be someone who really believes that the educational component of this program can be implemented on your campus. And it's sharing the message, and it's everything we've talked about before. There's been a ton of turnover in our industry, especially in the small college space. If you think about the timeline that we had, the timeline that we had showed kind of a gap of 5 to 6 years of really what, intentionally going out and promoting this program. There's a lot of new ADs, all right, that may not have NAI experience. You may be one of them. You may have been around a while. You may be new as well. But I think we've got to take this approach to where we need to educate our administrators, right? Educate the people who are sitting in a number of different, spots at the table. You should be at the table, obviously, all right? But let's educate them. And then let's make sure that they understand the value of this, because there's not going to be, Regan and I serve on the ADA. She's the first vice president, and we know that there's consternation about this program because people just, I don't know that they understand the transformational side of things. So last year at NACDA, Secretary Bob Gates said something that I wanted to share that I think is important. He said that we all have a duty to share what's important or impactful to our organization, whether that's positive or negative. You have a duty to talk to your leader, whoever that is, to share what's going to make a difference. If you don't share, what positive or negative, what is going to impact the organization, we're not doing our job. And I think sometimes, and even me with our president, sometimes I'm like, gosh, should I share this? But we have a duty to do that. On the character recognition side, which is the next slide, there are a number of awards and scholarships that come to play here. And again, there is a lot of talk about how do we share this a little bit more. Being on the committee, the Champions Character Committee, I get to see all these nominations, and oh my gosh, we have amazing people. And our school has benefited from this because I've been able to take some of the things I've read and said, listen to what this coach does. I think one of the great opportunities of, the recognition part is how do we share these stories more? And I think this is going to be really a part of our marketing approach in the future, but there are a lot of people doing a lot of amazing things. And so nominating people for those awards is really important, even if they don't win, because there's a lot of people doing a lot of really good things, and we've got to share stories. But in my opinion, we've got to share stories better in a more proficient way. And then teaming up for character is another one of these initiatives. You see this at championship events, but we do this all the time on our own campuses, service to communities and things like that. And so we don't need to go into too much detail on this, but with the reminder of when you're out in the community, talk about the values. Don't necessarily, just preach just on the Championship Character Program. Find a way to bring it into your message. One of the things that we're going to do is we're in talks with 2 high schools about sending our ASA to talk with seniors and juniors at these high schools about, what they wish they would have known going to be a student athlete. And it's going to be a Q&A series and all that. So servant leadership aspect of things. But we're also going to be very strategic, and we're going to coach our students up on making sure that these values, that we're finding ways to insert these values into the conversation. And then some of you may not know that we have character training resources, and now it's required for all coaches. They need to take the Champions of Character course for that training, and we're going to show you where those resources are. In fact, and we'll show you too at the end. We'll have Sarah show. And then conduct and competition. This is probably the most controversial piece in the ADA. It's the scorecard. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but when we come to the future of the Champions of Character program, but Champions Character program has felt too punitive from the athletic director's space. What we've heard very much on the ADA, it's all about punishment. I think we're really trying to change that and really make the scorecard more about, we do need to track ejections and things like that, but make it less punitive. So, if you have 25 sports and you have men's soccer and football and baseball, and you've got another school class 7 sports that doesn't have any of those, like the ejections are going to be different. So we understand it's different at different places. So the ejection component is going to be less punitive and more educational. And so people will have the opportunity to, earn their points back. And that's on the next slide, which is the conduct and competition page. And we actually go to the next one as well. So that was really where we're at now. Here's what the future looks like. And I'm gonna level with you. Okay. I've told on the Champions Character Committee, I said this to Sarah, I've said this to Paige, I've said this to Chesney, I've said it to Lori, I said it to Brittany Keller, who's on here today. Let me level with you. I mean, I think we've got one chance to get this right going forward. And I'm just gonna be honest, as an AD sitting in the chair, this program is super, super impactful. but it hasn't felt like it has been a focus in the last few years. It's now starting to come back, and I give the national office a lot of credit for that. So as you can see these 5 things on where we're going, there's going to be a marketing campaign, which is really around the re-education and awareness of this program, which we've gone into detail with you today. Talking about the scorecard, which we're going to call just a Champions of Character report. There's going to be changes and additions to it. We're going to create more resources and tools for campuses. We're going to give you examples on teachable moments. What did it look like to hire a coach of character? And then some orientation documents as well. We're looking at updating the branding and logos. I have kind of a little bit of a marketing background. If we're going to reinvigorate this thing, we need updated branding, logos, and just a look and feel. And then we're going to have a concentrated focus on, just the pride around the program. It's lost a little bit of its luster and its focus, and it's coming back. And so I think we have a great opportunity with so many new coaches and new administrators. To get back on board the Champions of Character and see the value in it, and not just as a transactional approach. And presidents see the value. The national office wants it to be a pillar, and I give the marketing department credit for putting so much time into it. But it hasn't been in front of our face for years. And I really believe that this is a program that can be transformational on your campuses if you just use the blueprint. And the committee's working through some of those issues, and we got one chance to get it right. So, the call to action is to all of you. You're difference makers. You're part of the future here. A call to action is join us. Join us in being a part of making sure that this program doesn't go away, because it is a program that can set the NAI apart and can set your schools apart. I'm not telling you it's going to help you recruit, okay? But it can help you develop people. And we need your help. And that's one of the reasons I'm really excited to be here today to talk with all of you. And so we can turn it over to questions. Are there any questions that anyone has just about the program? Here's our committee. But yeah, we can open up for questions if that's okay, Paige.
Sounds great.
Anything at all about implementation or anything that best practices or kind of the direction that we're going, how to get involved? And Sarah, we might be able to get ready just where some of the resources are at on the website. If we can show them there where that's at.
So feel free to chime in with questions. Even we would love to hear thoughts and perspectives on resources, products, materials, things that you feel like would be helpful for you to implement or talk or discuss. The slides that Nick actually used is our Champions of Character orientation. So we'll be sending that out to all of our liaisons as well with communication. So be on the lookout for that. If you go to our website, you click on current student athletes. There's lots of ways to get to Champions of Character. That one might be the easiest. So go to current student athletes, and then right here on the right-hand side, you'll see Champions of Character. All I did, let me go back a page. So the vast majority of the resources are going to be underneath campus character liaisons. So if you click on that, and here's a lot of the resources. So around education, the game day management. Also, as you continue to come back to this particular website under Champions of Character through the NAI, I know a lot of stuff will be updated. And we're going through a lot of these documents, and we're going to update them. We know stuff is dated. So bear with us as we continue to transition and go through all those documents. But I would say the vast majority of them live underneath resources. If you want to check out the award nominations when things are due, all that information lives here. Anything about the scorecard as well, how to get to NAI help, and then the scorecard as well. So if you click on resources, here's marketing resources, standards and responsibilities. So if you click on that, here's a lot of PDFs and pages that are hopefully helpful. So down here, we also have the core script and posters. So that talks about a little bit, kind of gives you a presentation outline if you want to use these cards that talks about each one and help you facilitate those conversations as well. So I would say the vast majority of the resources live there, but no, more is coming. So we'll continue to update the website, continue to update these resources as we get things polished and refined. So.
And to Jill's point, Jill Harder, Hooray Resources. I think that's one of the things that we were hearing in the ADA group, our Athletic Directors Association. I mean, there have been resources out there, but like, what more can we provide? So I think what you're seeing here today is just the start of what we're going to develop going forward. And I think another thing that would be great that, you know, I've talked a little bit about is, you know, case studies on, or just examples of what we've done. We just got to talk a little bit more about it and not brag about it, but just like talk a little bit about more the difference this makes. And that might give you an idea on your own campus.
So a great question about the Academy. Actually, the Live-Fi Academy no longer is in existence. So that's something that we need to make sure that we update. We just saw a massive decline from our institutions utilizing those resources. So the Live-Fi actually is no longer in existence. So if your students are struggling to get to it, that's why, because it's no longer something that we provide or have available. So and again, that's something, if there are additional resources or products that we can create to help supplement some of those, we would love to hear that as well, because I think we can create whatever you find helpful. We just need to know what those things are. We don't want to push or promote products that aren't going to be useful for you or your institution.
And to build off that, Sarah, I mean, this is really a period of evaluation and also implementation. So, you know, we've had different focus groups and, you know, of course the committee, but, you know, what's something that can help you? And I think that, you know, we're all open to ears, and Sarah would be the right person to contact on that, right, Sarah?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. There was a question from Karen about how we update our liaison as there has been a vacancy.
So liaisons are also located in NAI help. So if someone's listed as your liaison underneath NAI help, you can go in and remove that person and add who the new liaison is. It's up to each institution to decide who that person is on their campus. So that's really up to you. And we don't necessarily, the only thing that I know that we put out there is that someone that is involved in your athletics program, that is going to be a good person to kind of implement and move forward the Champions of Character initiatives on your campus. But we don't distinguish who that is for you. You get to decide. Does that answer your question, Karen?
I have a question, and it was way easier to just talk versus type it in. This is Tracy Gastineau. I'm at William Woods. Biggest challenge I feel like we have is for our kids is time management and getting kids to get excited about the servant leadership portion of things. Is there any feedback or any studies or anything that's been done, focus groups that really say, is it better for a sport to get involved with one organization and do that all year, or kind of spread it out? Does anybody have any feedback on that?
I mean, I can start, and if anyone else wants to jump in, you know, Tracy, I think you guys are in a really great spot with, you know, Steve Wilson is your new AD down there. And so, you know, he's a good friend of mine. And I think that, you know, he's going to be open to probably any new ideas to inject some life into some of this. I think some of it's a mix of both, right? You provide opportunities that for everyone, and then you let them kind of do their own thing as well. Like what we decided to do is that in the end, we, for lack of a better way of putting it, we couldn't necessarily trust all of our sports to follow through on what that is. And I'm not saying that the coaches didn't want to do it. They're just busy, and I get it. And so part of our liaison duty now, and you know, within our administrative staff is, you know, we've kind of gone out at the start of the year and figured out what are some fun things to do, right? And so we do High Five Fridays at the elementary school, but we have programs sign up for it. And it's the expectations for the coach to sign up. We're providing them the opportunity, which we felt like was really the hard thing for them to do. Here's what you need to sign up for. And then they signed up for it. And then what we learned is that, because we had the very same issue. And what we learned was, once we got the students to do it once or twice, they actually enjoyed it. And then once the coaches realized that there was a little bit of administrative support there to kind of present them the opportunity, then what we found out is they were going out and finding things on their own. And so I don't know that it's like just a clear cut this or that, but that helped on our campus, just to kind of develop those habits on, you can do this, it's not that hard. But then our student athletes, have probably embraced it, honestly, probably more than our coaches. Our coaches have, but our student athletes, there's one program in particular that, I consider a high achieving program, and it's the student athletes that were going to the coaches saying, hey, we need to do this. Like, why are they doing it? We're not. Well, that coach didn't respond to the email. So that coach ended up responding to the email to sign them up. So that's one way of doing it. And I don't know if anyone else has anything to add to that.
I would just share a couple examples that, as being the liaison, that I've been, have a little bit of knowledge. So I think we at the national office also partner with Special Olympics, and they're really awesome to partner with. And I would say the vast majority of our students that get an opportunity to participate or volunteer with Special Olympics, I don't know if I've ever had a student walk away and go, man, that sucked, right? So that is always an opportunity. We work with their national office. So if you're not sure if you have a local chapter, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to put you in contact with Lexi. She works for their national office. Other options are, we have schools that adopt an elementary school, and they go to their sports games, and those elementaries get to come and watch their teams for free. And it creates a crowd, it creates an environment, it creates buy-in for the local community. Some schools host just a day for all their schools to come in and watch free games. And again, it's super fun, kind of what we do for Teaming Up for Character for men's basketball, and Corey Westra does for women's basketball. So there's lots of ideas. That is something else we want to create, is just what is everybody doing, and giving you some really robust examples of what that can look like. That is definitely something else we want to provide you. So great question, Tracy, and I'll close my mouth and let others speak if they have other ideas.
And Tracy, if you want to talk more, send me an email, and if you want to jump on a Zoom or something like that, we can certainly talk more about maybe some other things that I've heard from other schools, or maybe seen in the award nominations and such, if that interests you.
And thank you, Kristen, for putting in the chat an option as well. Appreciate it.
Yeah, your conference can have a part of this too. Absolutely. Talk to your commissioner about it as well. In the heart, as Kristen talked about, Kristen, the athletic director at Park, we're in the same conference. She's fantastic. Our conference put out an initiative there through our ASA, our Heart of America ASA, and it's one representative from every school, and they came back to campus, and I think we had 6 or 7 schools do that as one of their projects. The Heart of America also does something called a Day of Caring in the fall, where they're 1 week, all of our schools do some type of service project. So your conference can be a part of this as well. And I noticed we had a few commissioners on here today, and that's been a big deal for us in our conference. It's kind of helped put on the map, maybe for some schools that were struggling with it. And there's at least a few things being done a year, and it's really a conference initiative.
And I'll just jump in, Lori Thomas with the Heart of America Athletic Conference. I think the one thing that we always talk about, especially when working with students or even our ASA, we don't want it to be really complicated, right? We don't want it to be hugely time consuming. So you can get really creative on, I'll give an example, a food drive, and everybody who comes to a game, they bring a can of food, and you can even get barrels, and you could put men's soccer, women's soccer. You can have a fun competition. Gosh, I remember in the 80s, they used to bring soap, and, you would put it in like your freshman, sophomore, or, you could do it by team, and then they get a pizza party, whoever gets the most. It's what also the basics, like providing the basics for the military. I think there's just so many things that you can do that could also drive your student athletes to come to games. So just kind of, you can make it fun, make it easy, and not overcomplicate things.
And so some conferences also have a conference character liaison. So for example, KCAC, Carol Hunt is their conference liaison. And so she actually put together a really beautiful handbook that I hope to be able to post on our website. And I also plan to share it out with all of our champions of character liaisons. And so that's an option too. And she actually goes around and helps the campuses promote and educate and do all their champions of character work as well. So your conferences might also have an individual that is in that capacity too. So any other questions?
And Sarah, if there isn't anything else, I just want to close with just kind of one quick thing to think about if there are any other questions. Okay. If you didn't take anything else away from today, take three things here. Number one, I think understand there's a plan and resources in place that have 5 values and 5 calls to action. It's there for you. You can implement it on your campus. It's going to take a little bit of work, just like with anything, but I think it could be more impactful than bringing a speaker to campus for a day. And that's how we feel. We're not bringing a speaker this year. We're going to do these things. The second thing, or in addition to that, with those 5 calls to action, if you want to start simple, just focus on one value this year and just be really good at it. And talk about it a lot. Make it to where, we have this thing on campus to where we start saying it's a great day to be a statesman. Everyone says it's a great day to be a statesman. And sometimes it even annoys me now because I'm saying it all the time. And I'm like, gosh, am I just a broken record? But it's stuck. So like find something that sticks when it comes down to, just that value. And I think the second thing is, if you're a character liaison, and I was at one point, and I'm going to do it again this year because I think it's important me to serve on this committee to try to figure out as we go through the change, but try to change the habit from that transactional to transformational. Like we've got some transactional things that we have to do, but let's figure out how do we make it more transformational and, serve our coaches. I mean, servant leadership is part of it, and serve our coaches as student athletes by maybe even making it easier for them. And I think the third thing is, let's not go away from sportsmanship. I beg and plead all of you. We are dealing with some things with people who are acting crazy. And sometimes it's the worst people are parents in the stands. But there's some things that happen on the court or the field of play. Like there might be situations where we shouldn't shake hands and things like that, but let's not stop. We're not teaching our kids the right thing to do. We're not teaching these kids, like if we just throw our hands up and say, we're done doing this, like what message are we sending? It might be easier for us in the short term, but it's going to be harder on generations to come in the long term. And we've got to figure out how to use this program to get people back and talking again, and doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. So there's 3 things you could take away those 3 things. And then we just really invite you to be a mouthpiece for this as it's going forward. We need you, honestly. This program is really important. It's important to me. I know it's important to the national office now. I know it's important to Lori and several others. But I'm just telling you, we need you. Because I think it would be a shame if this program went away. And there's a great opportunity, I think, right now going forward. And I really appreciate the national office, what they're doing to put the time and the resources in place to make sure that this is in front of us often. And so, and I'll just close with that. So thank you to them.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Nick, so much for your words of wisdom. I do want to just remind everybody, we always have these different topics the second Wednesday of the month, and our next will be September 13th. We actually have Sarah, who's going to be doing an overview of how to develop a successful ASA on your campus. And then she will be joined by our Commissioner, Rob Cashel, who's in the Cascade Conference. So excited to hear both of them and their knowledge. And thank everybody today and have an awesome day. We'll send out the recording later.